Hello and welcome to On to the Next Project. I'm Brian Miller.
And I'm Adam Krutinger.
And on this show, Adam and I have a weekly free-form conversation about building a living and a life with your passion.
And today's topic is a surprise to me. So head it off, Brian. Tell me what it is.
Yeah, that's right. You surprised me a bunch of weeks ago with the topic, and I'm going to surprise you. So yesterday was Father's Day. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I wanted to have this conversation since I am almost a father, got just a couple months away from becoming a dad for the first time. And I wanted to have a conversation, but mostly hear from you on what becoming a parent has changed as for you as a business person, as a freelancer, as an artist, what it's done to your lifestyle, your artistic sensibilities, if anything at all.
Yeah, no, I think this is a great topic. It's interesting. I'm an interesting candidate for it because in a lot of ways, at least personally, it hasn't really affected my life because I've grown up around kids and taking care of kids since I'm second oldest in a family of 9. I've been literally changing diapers since I was 5. So a lot of things about it were not new to me at all, but more so on the topic of having another person into your life and into your schedule, into your day job, your interests, your hobbies and stuff, and still managing your time. I mean, it's definitely a struggle to some extent, but I think the way to do it, I think the thing that a lot of parents get wrong, in my opinion, is that they change their life to fit the schedule of their kid rather than bringing their kid into their life. It shouldn't be an intruder. It should be a cohesive a family type thing. So we try to keep our life and our schedule as similar as possible, but still, of course, there were changes for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that I've been, low-key concerned about over, I mean, for years I've been thinking about that because traditionally I travel and tour and I'm on the road constantly. And so for years, the thought of having a kid to me was I wanted to, but it seemed impossible just because I'm like, well, I'm not going to be like some absent father that's just on the road all the time. That's crazy. And then just, this was the year we decided to do it and we knew we were pregnant. We knew Lindsay was pregnant. Hate when men say we. We knew Lindsay was pregnant a couple months before the pandemic. Of course, now it's what a weird time to be having your first child. But the silver lining is that I'm home 24/7 all the time. I can't tour. I can't travel. I'm not going to, it could be, gosh, I mean, it could be the summer of 2021 before it's safe to be really back out there. And everybody else, they have, if you're listening, you might have your own personal preference and feeling with safety. But for me, I'm pretty risk averse when it comes to health. I'm very not risk averse when it comes to business and art and things like that. So I've been really just curious, and you made me feel really a lot better back last fall when after a month or two I said, how's it going? And it just didn't look like anything had really changed, and you were still pumping out content and doing your teaching and managing your projects. So like you just brought your kid into your life. You just brought them into your
Yeah, we
schedule.
brought him. I mean, obviously, I mean, it would. My wife is a tremendous, the main, person that allows this to also be possible. But again, I try to include her in. Include her as in my daughter. Include my daughter into as much as I can, and especially if you look back at some of my first videos I was doing after she was born, she was a part of them. I had a sling or the baby holder, baby Bjorn on while I was doing some videos and while I was making some puppets and stuff. I couldn't always do it, but whenever I could, whenever it was my turn, mom needed a break, and that's what I did. Like I wasn't gonna. I mean, a lot of people think they just have to like just sit on the couch and hold the baby and not move. And they're. I mean, it's gonna sound weird. I was just like, you shouldn't be overly precious with this thing. Like, of course you should, but you got to also, raise your kid to be resilient. You know, like I remember many of my other friends' house who had their first kid, and we'd go there, they'd be like, shh, 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 baby's sleeping, and You know
Everyone I
what? They
know.
gotta they gotta get used to noise. Like we've got 4 dogs. The dogs are barking all the time. It doesn't scare the baby, but then a friend's baby came over. The baby's like, ah, just from hearing anything. I mean, like we
That's
got
me. To be fair, that's me with your dogs.
yeah,
I freak out like that with your dogs.
sure. I guess more so from a noise standpoint. Not that you would probably love the noise anyway, but like again, you have to raise kids to be resilient.
So I guess that leads me into kind of the next main point, which is, has having a kid made you rethink the way you approach your art, your business? I mean, you're in this situation where you make physical art, or has it just really stayed, because you hear about that a lot, like so recently on my podcast I had this local news anchor here in Connecticut, Teresa Dufour, who's had me on their show many times over the years, and she talked a lot about how when she became a parent, now she's got 2 kids, she said her whole identity shifted. She used to be Teresa from TV, and then all of a sudden she said her primary identity was just, I'm these kids' mom, and sometimes I go on TV. And
Yeah.
that shift in her identity, she said, when she would be, I think the example she gave was she used to do traffic accidents and stuff, and she used to report the news. That was her job. It's a traffic accident. But now she said she has all this empathy built into these, reporting an accident. She's like, that's someone's kid or that's someone's parent, and she said it just changed her approach even to just reporting the bare bones news in the morning. So have you had anything that really shifted the way that you approach your art or teaching at all?
I think it has, but I don't think people would recognize it
Mm.
for me because like you said, peripherally it looks like I'm doing a lot of the same stuff. And on one standpoint, I have been a little bit more choosy with the work and projects that I do because I do have a little bit less time to do it now. So I want to make sure I'm doing a project that I really care about. But also too, and it ties back into something that we've talked about in a previous episode. I'm hyper aware of the fact that like my daughter might be watching this when she's 60 years old, you know, and I'm gone, and she has her own grandkids perhaps, and I've become more aware of that, even though that was obviously always a truth. Everything from probably even our private Facebook conversations will be public domain someday, which is scary thought,
I can't imagine they're not already, but let's not dwell on that because it freaks
Yeah,
me out.
yeah. But just being. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I think some people get too caught up in almost in a religious way about their legacy, and I'm aware of it, and I don't let it drive me. But again, I'm much more hyper aware of it. Again, just yeah, how how I'm gonna be remembered by what I'm doing now. What we do
Are
in recording.
are you going out of your way to include I don't know why I keep referring, I'm always careful with people's kids about really avoiding pronouns, but like I may as well just say Fred. She's in so many videos of her own. It's not like it's some secret I need to hide here or
No, it's
anything.
not at all.
I just realized that instinctively I always dance around that with people's kids. I always
Yeah,
refer to them by it or they, just to let the guest decide if they want to include their kids in the conversation or not. But
sure.
um, do you go out of your way to have Fred around art and involved in art projects? And are you like, do you think you have more awareness of that than maybe other parents, or are you pretty much letting letting her decide what she likes? Like, just to give you an example, I get asked all the time, are you gonna like teach your kid magic? And I'm always like, no. Like, but if it's, I'll show them it a little bit here or there, and if they take an interest, and like somebody said, would you teach your kid magic? I said no. I would show them a trick or two, and if they were really into it, I'd hire one of my buddies who's a great magician to teach them. I wouldn't want to be the one teaching them that. Just like my dad didn't teach me guitar, he could have, but it made more sense for me to take lessons from a guitar teacher that wasn't my dad. What do you find that relationship with Fred? Do you think that's going to evolve over the years?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll evolve. I mean, like for me, obviously, puppets are going to be part of her life in one way or another.
Like she's gonna
You
hate
know,
hate puppets from being
I know.
around
I
it
mean,
since birth.
yeah, no, that's my goal though, is to not make her a puppeteer, but to make sure she doesn't hate puppets. And that's by, doing pretty much exactly what you just said. Like it's gonna probably be looked at something that dad does, and she's always welcome to join.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's what it has to be, because I think anytime with anything as a parent, I mean, the things that kids always resent most are the things that they're told to do. Do your homework. What made you never not want to do your homework more than anything? Being told to do your homework, right? I was like, I was just about to do it, but now I'm not
I
because you told me
literally
to.
I literally just said this to Lindsay like this morning. We always joke about, obviously I'm gonna want my kid to be around music, hopefully to love music and everything. It's such a big part of my life, and I think it's so joyous. And obviously I'm going to want my kid to learn an instrument because I think it's important to at least learn an instrument. But Lindsay has said, but no drums. We're not going to let our kid learn the drums, which is a very common parent thing, right? And I said, well, in that case, we should force it down their throat, like parents force piano lessons down their kids' throat. So if we make them take drum lessons starting when they're really young, within a year they'll be so tired of it, they'll be like, no, I want to play the violin instead.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. That's a good idea. Yeah, playing
Yeah.
reverse psychology on them
Yeah,
piano.
tell them by no means, no means are you allowed to, play the whatever, the clarinet. You're not allowed to play the clarinet. And no, but I'm gonna play the clarinet. Just have them rebel against that. So what kind of what my schedule is like, my kind of work, business, content creation. Normally I'd be on the road obviously more than I am now. What kind of advice would you have for the first, you're just coming, how old's Fred? 9 months?
Yeah, she's just over 10 months. Yep.
10 months. So what advice would you have for the first 4 to 6 months, or whatever, first 6 months of of getting into the hang of it? I'm really concerned about the lack of sleep and no sleep thing. I'm used to it from being on the road, but I'm concerned about my ability to do this kind of stuff, right? To have engaged, meaningful conversations, to be a guest on podcasts, to do my own podcast, to write effectively on like no sleep or crazy schedules.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because it's so different for everybody. Like we were like, almost in almost every case, the first 3 to 4 months are the toughest because they're really getting into a sleep cycle. They generally only will sleep for 4 to 6 hours at a time, so you're always going to be doing like a feeding in the middle of the night or something at first. Again, depending, um, but you'll just, I mean, it just becomes natural. Like, and at least it did for me. And again, you have a great partner as well. You guys are going to be a great team, and that's really, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's not always in people's control. It's having a great partner. It's just so helpful in everything, you know. But another more piece of practical advice I'd give to anyone is, sometimes you will make mistakes on things too, and the most important thing you could have to do is forgive yourself,
Hmm.
and just keep going and try not to make that same mistake again. Is because people can be hard on themselves, and then sometimes your partner is too, and you have to recognize those moments when they're being hard on themselves about something that they maybe had wished they had done, and you got to help them. Like, it's okay, you know, it's okay. Everything's gonna be fine, and we'll try not to do that again, and we'll make mistakes again in the future. But we have to just do. I mean, harping on, you know, holding on to something that you did that you wish you didn't do isn't going. It's just going to create like anxiety, and it's not going to create a positive environment for your family.
I feel like people do that with even insignificant things. And then when it comes to raising a kid, the stakes just seem so much higher. I feel like you get those sitcom moments of, I think I just ruined our kid for the rest of their lives. That thing that parents spiral into, which I would imagine is almost never the case. That it's, unless you're doing terrible big mistakes on a regular basis all the time, that everybody, it's just so funny, the perspective shift. And I know this is a well talked about topic, but it just makes you think about how, when you're a kid and you just see your parents as these perfect beings that know all and will always keep you safe. And then, now, especially with everything in the world the way it is right now, and you just realize just how tenuous everything is. And you're just like, my God, this kid's going to look at me like I have all the answers. And I feel like the thing that I don't know yet, right? But I keep trying to prep myself for the thing that matters most, it feels like, is to keep all of my adult anxieties about the way the world actually works away from the kid,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one thing that I'm excited to do is just, you know, even if I know answers, is to hopefully not tell her. Just
Mhm.
say let's look it up.
Yeah.
Daddy, how many planets are there? Let's go look it up. You know, and I think that there's a lot more value in that because especially as a teacher, the best thing you can do to teach anyone is to teach them how to learn, and then
Mhm.
there'll be nothing stopping them.
Yeah, learning how to find the answer is more important than knowing the answer,
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. I don't know if we need to make a big long episode out of this or drag it out or anything. It was just kind of on my mind since yesterday was Father's Day, and you and a whole bunch of very nice people in my life all wished me a happy Father's Day, which I wasn't expecting, and I had really kind of pulled back from right away instinctively, because I was like, I feel like there's a difference between doing what I've done and actually being a father, right? That feels like a step I haven't taken yet, but I appreciate the sentiment. And then it was just, we were recording today and didn't have a topic, and I was just like, it just feels like the thing to talk about right now. So anything else that you think is worthwhile talking about? Because I feel like you covered a lot of
Yeah,
the
no, I'll respond to one thing you mentioned because it is weird that celebrating Father's Day while you're still expecting, because it was weird for me too, you know, and I had an instinct to want to not, because like, oh, it's not there yet, like definitely I'm ready, don't get me wrong, I'm ready, but like we're just not there yet. But I mean, it's another one of those things where it's like, as a family, it's fun to celebrate things. That's
Mhm.
part of, in the same way that it's fun to pick out the color of the paint for the wall and
Mm.
stuff. It's fun to almost to to do that too. And even though we did celebrate Father's Day last year while we were still expecting, I mean, I still considered this one my first Father's Day,
Yeah.
and that's what everyone said. Happy first Father's Day. It's like, yeah, I was like, I did have another Father's Day, and that one counted, but like, hmm, you know, yeah.
It's
Like,
Father's
even think
Day,
of it.
but
Think of a
sort of.
birthday. It's like your first birthday is actually your second birthday,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, it's
It's
not
kind
the
of like that,
birthday.
right? It's
It's
literally not your first
the
birthday because
the
your first birthday was the birthday.
yeah, exactly. It's the only birthday we don't celebrate is the birthday. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
especially for other people listening, if they're ever in that in there more, I doubt we too often hit someone exactly who's in that situation who's listening to this. However, a lot of people know people, whether it's their buddy or their brother or their someone that they're friends with. So it's just always nice to help.
I got a question. Before we cap this off, I got a question. So I feel like when you're not a parent, it's easy to judge parents, and I try not to, right? You're not a parent, you see something, you go, how could they? And then you try to pull back and go, but I have no idea, right? I have no idea. I feel like I wouldn't do that, but I don't know. Have you found yourself now doing the things you used to kind of judge parents for, or have you been able to, is it easy? Like, I don't know what I'm asking. Is it easier to judge parents now that you are one? Because you could be like, well, I don't do that, as opposed to I wouldn't do that.
No, I guess if anything, I was a little vindicated because I always said, "Oh, I wouldn't do that," and we don't. I mean,
Oh,
like,
there you
I
go.
think, I mean, one more piece of advice I give to people, and it's hard to do because it's your instinct as a parent. Like, if your kid, and again, like Fred is trying to walk now, right? So she'll stand up and she'll wobble, and then she'll fall over, And one thing is, kids, and same thing with animals and but babies, they can sense the energy in the room, which is a weird. I don't like using that word that often, but they can sense the mood. I guess sense the
Hmm.
mood. So if your baby falls over and you're like, oh no, are you okay? Are you okay? You're like telling them, you're teaching them to be worried about what just happened. You know, and I think it's very important not to do that. Obviously, if and again, even if they're crying, because you can tell if they're hurt or not. You can just
Mm,
tell, because if they're just shooken up or scared, I don't necessarily think they should be coddled, because you're teaching them to need that. Whereas
mm.
when Fred wobbles over, and then you can see her, she's about to cry. We're like, "Yay! Good job, Fred! Good job! You're a big girl. No, you're okay. Let's try it again." And I think that that's going to be very beneficial to her as a human in a unsafe world.
Mm.
Even when it comes to feelings growing up and everything, I think a lot of people are very sensitive, and you can't. You have to. I want her to be prepared for a real world.
Yeah. Well, this is I don't know. I don't know how much this was helpful to the average listener in terms of business or anything, but it's been a topic on my mind that I feel like it's impossible to separate from being an artist or being a business person or freelancer or whatever, because it's a whole thing. It's like when people talk about, like my, if they're a writer, like my books are my children. It's like, yeah, but probably not if you actually have kids, right? Like it's
Yeah,
got to be different once you really like, because you probably before had thought
I bet
about
you some of them treat their books better than their kids.
it's I don't know. It's like I would just imagine that the level, the reverence that I have for some of my work, like the amount of emotional depth that I can put into my work, and I care about my work, that some of that cannot be reserved for my work anymore once I've actually got a human. That I'm guessing, I would imagine that I'm still going to care about my work, but with a different level of like a little bit lighter, with a different weight to it than I do before.
Yeah. You know
Uh,
what? There's one more thing to kind of tie into that, but you're making me think of something else too. And I think when people, just to, I guess, to take the counterpoint of what I'm doing, and people see that, oh, look, Adam looks like he's still producing just as much work as ever. He hasn't slowed down. And I bet you there are some people that wonder too, like, is he doing enough with his family? Is you know, and more so from that standpoint is, you think, you have a kid, and then the kid grows up, and I guess this, like, I guess for my parents, I would hate to think that they put all of their interests, hopes, and dreams on hold because they had me, you know,
Yeah,
and
because if you do that, then you actually, what are you modeling? If you put all of your own passions and hopes and dreams on hold, what are you modeling? You're a shell now, right? What do you actually, don't you like, right? I feel like you want to be able to teach, to model for your kids, because you like that word model when we talk about teaching and stuff, to model for your own kid that you can be passionate and put your whole self into a project and care deeply about multiple things at the same time and stuff, right?
yeah, absolutely. And again, it's exactly like teaching in the same way. We've talked about this many times, but as an art teacher, like, it's important for me to not just teach them art, but to be an artist so they can
Mhm.
actually see what that is. And it's, as a parent, it's the same thing. It's like, I want my daughter, I want my kids to have hopes and dreams, and take something that they love and go, you know, take it as far as they can. And the best way I can do that, outside of just being a nurturing, supporting father, is to do that also by example myself, the best that I can.
Yeah, and I had that example set for me by both my parents in very different ways, but it's a good reminder because both my parents are, they're really, really, I was gonna say high achieving, but that's really neither here nor there. They're both so dedicated to their work and to their passions and their pursuits. And one of the things that my dad, always taught me over and over and over, his big mantra was, whatever you do, do it to the best of your ability. And what he meant, and he meant it seriously, he would say to me, listen, if the best you can get in this class is a B, then I expect a B every time. I don't ever want to see a B minus. If you can get a B, I want to see a B every time. I don't expect an A, right? It was whatever you can do it to the best of your ability every time. Like he used to, because I was a basketball player, he used to say, leave it all on the court, right? Like if you he used to say, if we were done with basketball game and if I ever came home from a basketball game and said, can I go play with my friends? He'd get pissed because he'd go, well, clearly you didn't play hard enough at the game if you have the energy to go play with your friends now that we're home, right? So leave it all on the court. You should be wiped out when you're done with whatever you're working on because you gave it everything you had. And if you give it everything you have and you fail, I can't expect any more of you. I'm still proud of you because that's the best you can do, and it didn't work. That's fine. No issue with that. And he modeled that in his professional work, and I saw that all the time, and it was really powerful. Probably unconsciously for a long time, and then as I became a teen and a young adult, it became a very conscious desire to model what my dad was doing. I really admired it. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that
yeah.
that's a great example. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is great. I appreciate the openness to this conversation, and I'm man, I don't know. It's a couple months away.
You know, buckle up, buckle up. There's gonna be it's gonna be 3. So yeah, I guess I also just to throw it back at the audience too. I mean, I guess I'd like to hear their opinions, obviously, on everything we talked about too. But I know some people. I mean, some people don't even know their parents, and I wonder how something like that. I mean, we're both very lucky that
Yeah,
we did know our parents and whatnot. I can only imagine how that would affect you raising kids because I've heard. I mean, they're all anecdotal stories, but very positive stories, and also some things that are not so you know great to hear. So yeah, just if anyone's willing to share, we'd be interested to hear their stories too.
absolutely. So, well, thanks so much for this. This was great, and until next time, on
On
to
to the
the
next
next
project.
project.